My idea has been stolen, without attribution, by a sad, wannabe third-rate hack. It has been published, masquerading as exclusive in the world's most prominent and far-reaching platform in international affairs, foreignpolicy.com, visible to many millions around the world. I'm Crispin Rovere, and before I say what happened to me, let me explain the role of foreign policy strategists and analysts, the skill sets required, and what separates the pathfinding and legendary from the mediocre and grasping. The goal of foreign policy thinking is to imagine a range of credible futures, then, if skilled enough, invent and develop policy prescriptions that are resilient to those futures, assessing the pros and cons of each one, and then advocating for that which is the best. Best in aligning the means with ends and offers the greatest chance of achieving its intended goal. Few people are good at this. First, it requires an exhaustive knowledge of history.
How could I be so stupid?
And I mean exhaustive. Want to write about North Korea? Awareness of the Korean War is not even scratching the surface. Write about Russia? An exhaustive understanding of the Soviet Union and the Russian Revolution is just the beginning. A comprehensive knowledge of the Romanovs from Michael I to Nicholas II? Elementary reading. In order to understand Russia, you must realize the interplay between the Rurikids and the Slavs, supported by years of deep study of the Byzantine Empire, which so heavily influenced Russian statehood. And all that is just a prerequisite, a precursor foundation.
On, wax off.
Not every history buff is a foreign policy genius, but no serious foreign policy thinker lacks an encyclopedic knowledge of history. Once you have this foundation, you need many more competencies: expertise in game theory to apprehend state goals and interests, patterns of economic and military capability and their interplay, as well as government policy development and how decision-making processes are achieved and implemented. True foreign policy prodigies are exceedingly rare. Henry Kissinger certainly, then the true pioneers Niccolo Machiavelli, or even the original Thucydides. One of the tragedies is that to a great extent this field does not reward excellence, nor does it punish failure. There is honestly no domain where the term failing upwards proves more true than in foreign policy, in which in any experience, no matter how disastrous, simply adds to the resume.
You're not stupid, you're just in Congress.
While the very thing that is prized most, policy imagination, is generally punished.
Handsomest politicians came up with a cheap, last-minute way to combat global warming. Solving the problem once and for all. Once and for all!
This is because advancement in foreign policy circles depends entirely on the favour of those in positions of influence, be it government or think tanks, and that means sticking to rigidly accepted orthodoxy, promoting elitist attitudes, and trying not to embarrass your seniors. Any new idea, particularly a policy idea, is, by definition, at genesis, going to be a minority position. Anything that might be transformative is going to be controversial. And as Machiavelli puts it, the innovator has for enemies all those who have done well under the old, and lukewarm defenders in those who may do well under the new. In short, the goal of foreign policy analysis may be to enhance national and global well-being through wise and prudent international stewardship, and yet those who gain influence and positions of power often do exactly the opposite. The result of this practice over 50 years really does speak for itself. But here there is a tension between the interests of the individual and that of eminent publications. For the prestige and success of these organizations depend heavily on building up a legacy of influence. To be able to claim that new ideas that transform the way we view and manage the international order were first distributed by them. The reputations of awe and magnificence built up by these legacies, even if trashed by later generations, cannot be overstated. Hannah Arendt's Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil, was a profound work of political philosophy published in The New Yorker, 1963. The Clash of Civilizations by Samuel Huntington, which showed the cause of conflict as cultural or ideological rather than economic, was published by Foreign Affairs in 1993. In short, what separates a mere journal from a veritable institution is the prestige and legacy of their brand. Thus, an individual in foreign policy who seeks to bridge the wide chasm between minor success in government and academia to achieve the heady heights of recognition and relevance as a thought leader in their field must be capable of generating inspired ideas, advocating for them aggressively, but without simultaneously offending or embarrassing their superiors or host institution. Given that such prodigious talent is exceedingly rare to begin with, the temptation is always to cloak one's true mediocrity by stealing another's idea and then passing it off as your own in a major legacy publication. Which brings us to what happened to me. Followers of our Baltic channel would be familiar with this video I published back in January, where I presented my idea for restoring the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. I listed my reasons as to why this would be a sound strategy to safeguard European security into the next century. The discrediting of pan-Slavic nationalist ideology pushed by Moscow, the need to incorporate post-war Ukraine and post-Lukashenko Belarus into Europe, the geopolitical differences between Central and Western Europe, and the need to protect NATO's eastern flank even as the United States pulls away, having to focus on a rising China in the Pacific. I also knew the pushback that such an idea would receive, especially from my Lithuanian friends, some of whom being fearful that it could result in a Polish takeover. In this, I felt uniquely able to take the slings of that criticism because I can assure Lithuania in a technical sense that its influence would be preserved and indeed expanded in the Commonwealth, but also because of who I am. Even my greatest skeptics know that I love and adore Lithuania and its identity and would never propose something that might undermine that. And over the preceding 2 months of active engagement, there was a shift. As more people considered the merits of the proposition and as the issues raised by critics were addressed with positive solutions, the general reception markedly improved, with the prospect of even bringing it into the mainstream agenda. Imagine my delight then when I learned an article promoting my idea was published in foreignpolicy.com. After all, it is the largest foreign policy publication in the world with 1.2 million followers on Twitter alone. Indeed, once an idea is published in FP, it is unarguably mainstream. Controversial perhaps, propositional even, but in the domain of public discourse and likely to be considered by policymakers. I eagerly clicked to read what the author had written, my new ally and acolyte, certain to credit my ideas with his own expanded analysis, like any first-year undergraduate is expected to do. Okay, maybe not anywhere, but hey, that could just be an editorial oversight. I mean, it's not like this credentialed American Enterprise Institute Senior Fellow, Martin Center Associate, King's College and Oxford alumni would ever dream of taking an idea and claiming it as his own, no matter how intellectually deficient, imaginatively constipated, strategically inept, or academically mediocre he might otherwise be. There's no way he'd attempt to take a unique idea that was already published, one that was transformative, pathfinding, far beyond anything he had previously achieved or his own pedestrian skills in foreign policy innovation could reasonably justify, and pretend it was his own. Right? Oh. But hey, maybe it's a total accident, a coincidence. I mean, I know GPT-4 describes me as a, quote, prominent scholar, thinker, commentator on international relations, nuclear strategy, and regional security issues, one who is playing a crucial role in educating future generations of thinkers and analysts and deepening our understanding of the intricacies of international relations and the challenges that confront the world in the 21st century, characterizing my overall contribution to the field as, quote, immense, unquote, but I published the idea in one of my own YouTube channels. Maybe when doing his research for FP on restoring the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, my video was buried deep in the internet, obscured by Google's opaque algorithm. Maybe this PhD graduated researcher didn't have a chance to review the sources. Oh. Okay. I mean, alright. Perhaps this Dalibor Rohac is just a craven pretender, but at least foreign policy as a venerable legacy institution would be quick to defend academic integrity, aghast that anyone would drag their brand into a case of IP theft. That when alerted to this affront, they would be quick to offer an apology, disavowing the author and giving appropriate credit to the true progenitor of the underlying concept, even if not published or popularized on their own platform. I mean, sure, the previous CEO of foreign policy might have abandoned 50 years of avowed political neutrality to give a partisan endorsement to a candidate for president in the 2016 US election on behalf of the whole organization, citing her extensive list of foreign policy achievements in doing so. But hey, it didn't matter. After all, Hillary Clinton was definitely going to win, right?
Not only are they forecasting a Hillary Clinton win, they're forecasting a pretty big blowout.
Everyone thought so.
She's ahead in almost every poll, every swing state, every national poll.
There was definitely no prominent foreign policy thinker at the time warning for months that the opposite was in fact true, right? Oof. But that's okay. He's moved on. New leadership, a return to form. Surely after being notified repeatedly about the academic malfeasance being actively promoted through their vast worldwide network, the current generation of executives at foreign policy would prioritize reputation standing above profit. I mean, yes, as laid out in my introduction, these institutions have an incentive for pretending they promoted exclusive ideas, particularly ones that might reshape the strategic architecture of an entire continent, but doing the right thing is what comes first. You see, all this leaves me in a bit of a conundrum. They want to ignore the issue in the hope that I go away, that my role as the idea's creator can be conveniently buried and forgotten in the noise of their infinitely larger megaphone. The problem is, it's an idea that I really believe in, that could benefit millions of people, constrain an expansionist Russia, integrate a war-torn region, and preserve peace and stability for generations. If that is the ultimate outcome, who the f*** cares who gets the credit? Is my ego so big that it would prefer to drag down those who like this idea so much they'd pretend it was their own, even if doing so hurts the cause in the long run? It's not a trivial question. After all, I'm not exactly humble when it comes to my abilities in this area. I absolutely see myself as among the greatest strategic minds of my generation, one of the best alive today. But the genuine answer is still no. Some of my most impactful work has been done for governments, not attributable, prevented from disclosure by NDAs in perpetuity. I do work for its own sake, and if it meant that a Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth could be restored, one that every constituent member was happy with, be they Baltic or Slavic, then I'd be absolutely delighted. But I don't feel that this is an either-or, that I must allow the clambering, mediocre despots to steal my work, using ideas that they could never conceive themselves and barely understand regard. But this video, this controversy, could promote rather than hurt the underlying idea. And this is why I ask you, from the bottom of my soul, to share this video as widely as you can on social media, mailing lists, think tanks, friends, colleagues, politicians, not only to protect my reputation and hold these people to account, but also, and more importantly, to expose others to the underlying idea, that through this incident we garner more attention for the deep cause. Indeed, even if you disagree with the idea, I'm sure that you would concur that the goal of an enduring peace in Europe after the current horrors in Ukraine are concluded is well worthwhile. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time and for supporting this channel. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.